Are you a member of an illegal cannabis club where you go and smoke the cannabis you've grown yourself or smoke the stuff grown by other members of the club? We ask because in a few minutes we'll bring you our film where a police and crime commissioner goes and meets cannabis club owners and afterwards says he wants a conversation with the Home Office about whether cannabis clubs have a part to play in tackling drugs misuse.
I was sceptical about this before I went into that meeting because what are cannabis clubs? They're breaking the law.
At the moment, you could face a warning or a £90 fine for possession. But if you're caught 3 times, you're likely to get a criminal conviction. 6 out of the 39 PCCs say they are open to some form of decriminalisation for recreational use of the drug. A further 6 said prosecuting people for cannabis use or for going to illegal cannabis clubs was not a priority. The PCC for Derbyshire, who's also the national lead on substance abuse, has been to meet members of an illegal cannabis club, where people meet up and smoke cannabis that they grow for themselves. Crucially, they say, they don't sell any. Here's Rick Kelsey's report.
Cannabis in the UK is a Class B drug, but people seem to be becoming more open about smoking it, to the extent dozens of cannabis clubs where the drug is shared and smoked among members have been set up. Some are even holding outdoor festivals, like this one in Brighton. And now the debate over cannabis is even extending to the people who oversee our police. A significant number of police and crime commissioners, the people who hold chief constables to account, have told this programme they're now in favour of some form of cannabis decriminalisation. One of those commissioners is Hardyal Dhindsa, the UK lead commissioner for drug abuse. He's asked the government for an immediate change in the law on drug policy. He wanted to find out for himself what the cannabis clubs were about.
Hardyal, today you're going to be meeting some of the guys who run the biggest cannabis social clubs in the UK. What is it you want to find out from them? Enforcement
by itself will not solve the problem. Education, regulation is important, as was shown with prohibition. So I'm really interested on what cannabis clubs do, how they have survived, and what they can offer and contribute to this debate.
Is this a little bit odd, as a police and crime commissioner, meeting people who are openly breaking the law?
Yeah, I mean, until a few days ago, I hadn't even heard of cannabis clubs. And it's something really different. And the fact is, as far as I understand it, there's over 100 cannabis clubs up and down the country. And wherever they have been set up, there's been never a single raid by the police. So I'm really intrigued to understand why that is, how they've survived, and what they actually do that has made them be taken up in terms of membership and in terms of the police actually not taking action in terms of what they are doing. So,
but it's your job to hold the police to account. Yeah. So are you not holding them to account for doing something which is illegal?
It's an operational matter. We help push the policies, Parliament sets the laws, and chief constables have to have independence on how they operationally deliver policing. And I'm intrigued that chief constables up and down the country have not taken action against something which is blatantly illegal.
We asked all 39 police and crime commissioners their views on the cannabis clubs and wider decriminalisation. 33 responded. 6 of them told us they didn't want to see people criminalised for smoking cannabis, while 6 others said it wasn't an area they had strong opinions on. The Home Office say they expect the police to enforce the law.
UK Cannabis Social Clubs has a register of around about 160 individual clubs, although it looks as though only around about 25 or so actually have regular meetups or a physical venue. Though with the amount of police and crime commissioners who now say they're open to the idea of them, that number could grow.
The map of the Western world where cannabis is decriminalised for recreational use is growing. All these countries have recently decriminalised small amounts. And soon, over in Canada, anyone in the whole country will be able to grow their own plants as well as smoke them. Christine and Greg both run cannabis clubs throughout the country. Despite the fact what they're doing is illegal, they agreed to meet the Commissioner.
Today you're meeting the Police and Crime Commissioner for Derbyshire and the UK lead on substance abuse. What do you guys want to ask him?
I want to ask him how he deals with other police crime commissioners who aren't so positive on substance abuse, and how he gets around and manages to liaison with them in order to create some kind of balance.
You guys work in and run cannabis social clubs. How nervous are you about running them and the potential for being arrested?
Completely. We're still having people that are growing a small number of plants for themselves, and they're having their door kicked through. They're being arrested. They're being taken to the police station, held there for 24 hours, like they're some kind of terrorist. And it's not what a consenting adult should have to be put through. You know, people have been growing cannabis for hundreds of years.
Obviously, with cannabis, it's been pretty medically proven that there's increased risk of lung disease and lots of psychotic illnesses that can come along with it. So surely by encouraging people to come to your clubs, that's just going to encourage people or leave people open to getting more ill?
I don't know how you could put that argument across when currently people are accessing cannabis through the streets. There's no harm reduction in place to advise them what kind of cannabis to use. The cannabis is not regulated, so it could be sprayed with pesticides and fungicides, which are very harmful when you smoke.
Hardyal Dhindsa supports some form of decriminalisation, but will he back cannabis clubs? It was time to leave him and the club owners to talk.
Greg, nice to meet you. Please take a seat. Grab a seat. Right. Thank you. Thanks for meeting with me.
Thank you for meeting us.
Yeah. Right. What are they all about when cannabis use is illegal in this country?
They're a way for people who already consume cannabis to find a safer way to access it away from the black market. Currently, cannabis is the most widely available drug in the UK. People can buy it pretty much every town, city or village in the UK. It's produced by people that don't really care about the way that it's grown. It could have chemicals left in it. It could be sprayed with fertilisers.
How does your cannabis clubs work? You run a cannabis club.
It works as it's a social club also, as well as just a cannabis club. There's a social side to it. So there's people that'll come from all over the place and meet up and talk. And for some people, it's their outlet. It's their only one day out a week. Some people have depression and suffer with anxiety, and it helps with that also.
Lloyd is a recreational user who helps out with the club's work.
That's partly why I choose to use cannabis instead of alcohol. It's safer, and it seems strange that it should be a moral issue when really drugs were never a moral issue. It was always a health issue.
Why do people come to you and not just buy off the street and wherever they can? Why are people coming to your clubs and becoming members?
They grow the cannabis between themselves. We all share our information of how it was grown, the process of it, so we know that what's in that has been flushed, it's safe.
Consumers can access cannabis. I think people who don't access it are going to be a lot happier about that, rather than it being run by an organised criminal market that doesn't pay tax, and the government doesn't see any of that money. We could be benefiting from that in lots of other areas of the country. We very much welcome any feedback from notes from the other police crime commissioners in the country. It's a conversation we want to have. This is an adult issue.
We'd like to work with them rather than against them. So if we can find a middle ground on where they stand, and if they could give us a way of, right, okay, we're not happy with this way, but this way would be a better way for you to go around it, then we're well open to
starting this discussion.
Yeah, starting a discussion.
I'm not going to promise anything, but I will certainly look at that, and that's my job, to stimulate debate, look at where there is good practice which can make a difference to people that we serve in terms of reducing criminality and reducing vulnerability to people who can be taken advantage of by serious organised criminality.
Later on, a catch-up to find out how the meeting went.
How was that?
Interesting. I mean, I went there, I sort of be intrigued to hear what kind of cannabis clubs are about. And I have to say, I've been impressed. What they're doing. Is there room for more education regulation? That's the question. And that's what it's raised in me, to see whether cannabis clubs have got a part to play in that.
But you are one of a bunch of PCCs who now believes in some form of decriminalisation. Is there not a gulf growing between you and the Home Office?
I would be if I was not. I'm not condoning this sort of activity. What I'm trying to do is that breaking the law is currently the situation. We need to have a dialogue, and I want to work with the Home Office to see whether cannabis clubs have a part to play in looking at how we can actually tackle drug misuse, serious organised criminals through county lines or others exploiting vulnerable groups.
You are, though, still one of just a few police and crime commissioners who have openly said that you are open to some form of decriminalisation with cannabis. Are you still far away at odds from the majority of police and crime commissioners who have to hold the chief constables to account?
Yeah. I was sceptical about this before I went into that meeting, because what are cannabis clubs? They're breaking the law. What I've heard is they appear to be making a difference in terms of how people don't go on the streets and get targeted and become more vulnerable, and there's regulation. Regulations worked in Europe, but education reform can make a difference, and more of that is required.
Hardyal Dhindsa is now pushing for the law to be changed in favour of some form of decriminalisation. In the meantime, cannabis clubs continue to operate somewhat freely, yet with no sign of a change in the law here, like in many parts of Europe and in Canada.